So I'm like, I'm innocent. I'm so naive to this. And I'm thinking, okay. So we went to the unit. Let me back up. Few questions. How many promotion points you got? Are you promotable? How many promotion points you got? Because we were all sergeants. They were sergeants and I was a sergeant.
So they were concerned on whether or not you were going to get promoted before anyone.
Immediately.
Oh my goodness.
Immediately. Those were the questions. They didn't say how you doing, is your family settled,
Wow.
Immediately they started asking about, are you promotable? How many promotion points you have?
Wow.
And I was like, I don't
know.
Who's thinking about that stuff right now? I'm trying to figure out this big post.
Wow.
So we went to the unit, and I guess they had called ahead and told the first sergeant or whatever, because I went to see him. Now, mind you, I said my ex-husband was my mentor. Back then, do you remember the series, the books we used to study out of? FM 25-101,
Yes.
FM 20. That was, so when you became an NCO in Germany, I was trained good now.
Mm-hmm.
That you got that stack of
Know
books.
the regulations.
Along with the TC 22-6, I think it was, and the leadership book and all that. So one of the things in that one of those books,
and your soldier's manual.
yeah, soldier's manual. I specifically remember saying when you arrive at a new unit, ask about the medal, ask what the mission is, those type of things. So I had actually copied that piece out of that one of those manuals. I think it was 25-100, and kind of taped it in the green book. My mentor always told me, have me a green book. And so I
The
went
little memo. You're talking about the little
I'm
memo?
talking about the record book, the 5x7 one.
Okay.
And so now I'm trained good as a good sergeant. So he's giving me all the tools I need as a good sergeant. Mm-hmm. But now I'm not a good engineer yet because I have not worked my MOS because I was in a quartermaster unit. I've done a little bit, but not enough to hone my craft. And so now I'm in this pure engineer battalion with these guys that want to know what my promotion points are. So I go see the first sergeant, and he says, I'm going to put you in the supply room because I heard you just came from a quartermaster unit, so you probably got a lot of quartermaster experience. And I said, no, I want to do my MOS.
Yeah.
A quartermaster. I said I didn't work in the supply room in the quartermaster unit.
Yeah.
So now I'm starting to get to know who the engineers are, but still kind of naive to how I'm going to be treated, but not dumb to it. So I go home and I share this with my spouse, and he used to be a combat engineer.
Oh,
he was also a reclass.
So he was really
He already
upset.
knew what it was going to be like. So he kind of gave me some tips that, what to expect. And that was by far, I can say, as I look back over the years, my worst experience ever.
Wow.
Because it was, I guess, my first, and so much happened. Every corner. I always wanted to help soldiers. So by now I've learned to care for soldiers and want to help soldiers. And so by now, when at the end of that duty station, that first tour at Fort Hood, I did not feel like I helped one soldier because so much had happened. I got promoted to staff sergeant at that time, but I never got a chance, I felt, to help a soldier because I was so busy trying to save my career because of all the darts and the arrows that were being thrown at me and the experiences that I was having.
Wow.
Because, trying to get assimilated to this new MOS, they gave me all the setup projects, giving me projects that they knew
that you weren't familiar with. Wow.
But there was always a ram in the bush.
Wow.
Always. And everything they meant for evil got turned around for good for me. And this one big project specifically, a main post, and we had to redo a motor pool, and they would do things like not provide me with the dump trucks I needed, or not give me enough personnel that I needed. So now I'm operating and I'm the supervisor, because once you become a staff sergeant, you still operate, but now you're a construction supervisor and you're supposed to be supervising a site. So if I don't have anybody to operate a piece of equipment, now I'm operating. Now who's on the ground supervising?
Yeah.
So back in those days, construction soldiers did a lot of the work. Now we contract everything. But back in those days, like I tell people all the time, we could do a jog around Fort Hood and I can show you all the things that I've built around here. That's how much time I have there. I have like 16 years of my career there.
Wow.
Yeah, so, we
Wow.
were heavy into construction back then. We put this big sign up. That's the first thing we make is our sign. And it say troop labor, save $500,000 or whatever.
Wow.
And like FORSCOM commanders and things of that nature, they would come check on these projects since they were FORSCOM level projects. And one particular project that I was in charge of, I didn't have the resources I need. I didn't have the dump trucks. I didn't have personnel. They started sending because we would contract out for our materials, they started sending them before I needed them. And so I would get stockpiled over there.
Oh, wow.
So now I got this 7,500 foot stockpile of materials on the center of Fort Hood. You can see it coming on post. But I didn't know what else to do with, because once it starts, you can't stop it. And then I get a visit from the FORSCOM sergeant. And this is a big deal, right? So he goes, what's going on over there?
What's the pile over there for?
Yeah, so first, when the entourage arrives on site, I'm operating. I'm operating a piece of equipment. I'm on the loader. And one of the soldiers flagged me down.
I was about to say, everybody's running around like the big dogs are here.
And I was like, sergeant. So at the time I had like really long hair. So because I've been in this piece of equipment all day, construction had hairs all over my head. I get out, I'm covered with construction dust, and I got to meet these generals.
I can't imagine.
This big entourage. So, I'm wrapping my hair up, tucking it under my construction helmet, and I just handled it. I just was like, answered every question. I knew what I was talking about. And that was the thing. I don't know where my platoon leader disappeared to, because they're usually the ones that brief.
Well, they didn't have an explanation for this big pile of stuff.
I don't know where he was. I'm like, why am I briefing? I'm not the one that briefs. Where's the platoon leader? But, it came out okay, what happened after that because of that. Because they asked me, why are you on a piece of equipment when you should be supervising? And I said, well, we're short this and short that. And, so I have these resource constraints, because you got to give them that brief. We had a big briefing board. And they looked at my resource constraints and said, wow, you have a lot of resource constraints. How are you getting this done? And I just said, I'm making it happen, sir.
Wow.
And when they left that site, like the next day, when I got to the site, it was dump trucks lined up.
Wow.
It was fuel trucks lined up. It was everything lined up.
Everything that you needed. What advice would you give to someone that is faced with this type of adversity of being the first or standing out because of being unique in a group of individuals that you have to really figure it out and people are really not willing to help you learn immediately?
Well, one, I'm going to tell you, it's frustrating. It's very frustrating. But now that I can look back on it, I will tell you, be calm. And I always tell, especially female soldiers in the Engineer Corps, but I'll tell everybody, learn your craft.
Yeah.
Learn your craft. If you know what you're doing, it gives you confidence. And that's what gave me confidence, knowing what I was doing. I studied engineering night and day. I could tell you what the angle of dozer could go on the side, alternate route to get to where I got to. And in that, in the struggles, in the frustration, I didn't know it then because I didn't always handle it the best way I could. But now I can give that advice. In the struggle, in the frustration, be calm. Because they expect you to go off. They expect you to be angry. Never let them see you
sweat. No.
angry. Don't let them see you cry. That was something I never let them see me cry. I literally would hold it in all day long. And the minute I hit the door, I would have a good cry. Because you got to cry it out.
Cry it
and
out.
Get yourself built up.
I've had many days like that where I, barely made it into the house. Sometimes I would just sit in my car before going inside the house and just letting it out. And I just thank God for my husband because he was always there. We were in the same unit, dual military, and he understood, the challenges that I had working in an IT unit. And I was the outcast because I came from personnel. So I came from recruiting. I came from working at the personnel unit, and I'm not IT. And so getting into that element, I learned it, and I learned it well, and I knew my job well. But there's something about being an outside element and going into a crew that is of one nature and they're used to being one way and it's unfamiliar and having to adapt. But it happens. It happens all the time. But it's very uncomfortable, especially when people point it out and they expect you not to know your job or not to know what to do because you're outside of that element.
It's even more uncomfortable when you are a part of that element and you're still an outsider. That's the world that I lived in and still live in, So you would think it would change as a sergeant major, but not much. But back then, very frustrating time in my career. Frustration changed for me when I became a sergeant first class. When I realized that, hey, something's going to have to shift here. I'm going to have to act differently because they're not going to act differently. And I remember me making a conscious effort. I specifically remember this. I was in Alaska. Same scenario. So just think, this scenario that I experienced happened at every duty station. Knowing my job, but not being accepted as knowing my job. Resistant leadership and resistant soldiers. I mean, so much so that I had one incident where a private E2 told me he wasn't used to working with females.
Wow.
I'm like, well, you ain't been in the Army but 5 minutes, so you're not used to working with anyone. But you'll get used to it, I promise. And when I became a sergeant first class, in today's Army, I don't think that they empower the sergeant first class. And so that's what I work on now, empowering people to know who they are, not to make them cocky, not to make them disrespectful, but there are 2 ranks in the Army that I think are the baddest ranks in the Army. That's Sergeant E5. I love a sergeant, and I tell them that all the time, because you're the first person that sees that soldier in the morning. You're the last person that sees that soldier in the evening. And you have the most influence over that soldier.
Yeah.
And then that
because of an E5 has been where they are, can really relate. They can really relate immediately. Relate. They haven't forgotten what it's like, and they also aspire to be greater. Yeah.
And I tell them they can make 1,000 mistakes with me. I let sergeants make a lot of mistakes. If they're not putting a soldier in danger of losing their life, I am going to be very lenient with anything. If it's not malicious, you're not going to see me as a senior leader, as a sergeant major, recommending harsh punishment. Yeah. Because, like you just said, they're in the middle. They're aspiring to be something great. And all they know is what they have seen other NCOs do. So they're trying to mimic that. Yeah. And sometimes what they're mimicking is not the best example.
And it may be just from what they've seen.
That's
and
right.
what they've experienced and the leadership that they have had.
Right. Yeah. And so I allow them to make a lot of mistakes. And each time I talk to them about how they could have done that a little bit differently. When you and I were coming up in the Army, it was that harsh leadership, tough love leadership. Yes.
Oh my gosh, I can just
yes.
Just
I mean, she's just like shuddering thinking about it.
We're going to take a break. We'll be right back, and I will share with you my experience, why I feel like that. We're going to continue this conversation. I am with Command Sergeant Major Deia Aubrey, and this is Sister Soldier, and you're watching She Vet Inspires.
Yes, so you were shuddering at me talking about that harsh leadership, Sister Soldier, and we came up in a rough, tough love atmosphere. Drop, give me 20 push-ups type atmosphere. Discussing earlier about the stress cards and how all of that. One particular job I had was an equal opportunity advisor. Special duty, you do it for 3 years.
Love that job. I had that job, and I absolutely love it because I could help so many people.
I didn't like it. Maybe because it was like I had to do it.
It was pivotal to me because it gave me the opportunity to hear what other people had to say instead of being on the side where I saw that they were reprimanded for some reason that they weren't heard for. Right. And it really molded me I took it to the max. I took it to the max. It was like, I have the authority. Commander, you can't do this.
And you're right.
And they didn't take the PT test so many times. And they need another opportunity and put them on this program. And I love that because I was that intermediate person for someone who needed another chance. Right. And it was because we were so on that hard kind of love that I wanted them to be able to see another part of it. So I absolutely love that job.
It was a good job, even though I didn't particularly care about being in it. But after the effect of it it made me a better leader. Yeah. It made me
more compassion.
Yeah, more compassion. Yeah. It helped me understand soldiers' issues and problems a little more. And like you said, it taught me how to be a good advisor to commanders. Yeah. It taught me. And that's very key as an enlisted advisor. You have to be a good advisor to commanders,
and not so much as throw rank around, but to really be that leader, because sometimes higher echelon, the commanders, the generals, the first sergeant, platoon sergeant doesn't always, they have so many hats that they're wearing that they don't have the chance to really dig deep and be personable about everything or know everything. And so if we can step in and just kind of say, hey, have you looked at this angle, and know your job, like you said.
Absolutely.
Know your job, know the regulation.
That's you're the subject matter expert on that.
Yes. I was a fast tracker. I was in Germany and I was a young E4. And my supervisor had just come from being a drill sergeant. This is that hard kind of love, of which I learned a lot from it, but wasn't the best thing. That it's a real memorable piece of my career. But I had got to summarize Article 15. Simply because I didn't know of a duty that had changed. The roster changed. Friday, maybe about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we all went home at about 4, and we were told to check the roster to make sure you don't have duty before the weekend.
Right.
And so, although I checked it prior to 2 o'clock, I checked it at lunchtime. It changed after that. I was placed on duty on a Sunday, and I wasn't aware of it. I happened to go out of town to help another friend of mine. So I ended up not being home when the phone rang for me at 8 o'clock in the morning to be on duty. So I was charged with not being responsible and had to sweep the whole parking lot. It was a summarized Article 15, and I'll never forget it. But I learned so much from that to double check, first of all.
Yes.
It was a hard lesson. I never forgot it. Never forgot.
and you know what?
Yeah.
That's what they're designed for.
Yeah.
And I learned that later on in my career. I've never gotten an Article 15 or anything like that. But as I became a first sergeant and a sergeant major, I learned that, just give them something to let them learn a lesson.
Oh,
and
I learned.
Around Article 15 is one of those things. So I certainly learned as an equal opportunity advisor that the harsh punishment is not always the answer.
Not.
It gave me a heightened level of compassion for soldiers, and it also gave me a deeper insight into the regulation just does work out for the soldier. Because it's the regulation,
and it's interpreted. Everybody interprets the regulation their own way, and so what it may be saying to you doesn't always mean what it's saying and what I get out of it. So you have that dispute going on, that disparity, and eventually come down and say, okay, what is it? Meet in the medium of what it's saying.
Well, the key thing for me, and when it came down to those situations, is I would ask the commander from a reasonable person's standard.
So wait a minute. You actually sought the advice of your commander. So as a sergeant major, you went in. You didn't just make the decision yourself and pull rank. You actually wanted to come together with the commander. I think that's a key on having good relationships. Absolutely. From the time that you become a senior NCO, officers become a big part of your life. They become a big part of your everyday life for the rest of your career, because you're going to have that platoon leader. Like I said yesterday, you're going to have that platoon leader. You're going to have that company commander. You're going to have, even if you work, say, in a staff position, in a G3 or a S3, you're going to have an officer counterpart. So relationship with that officer is very important, because their orders are given just a little bit different than ours are. And so you must understand how they work as well as them understanding how we work. And when I say that, I mean, we used to look at our career tracks very separately. Very separately. They're not like that in today's Army, and that's what NCOs need to understand. The new Sergeant's Major curriculum, and I was one of the first classes to go through it, is the same curriculum that they do at Fort Leavenworth for the majors. Oh, wow.
They changed it. I do want to employ the Sergeant's Majors of today that the reason that the curriculum changed is because they wanted us to be able to be on the same sheet of music with our officer counterparts. That's what the difference was.
That makes sense.
That's what the difference was. Using the same language. See, we weren't
and not creating separateness.
There used to be a thing called NCO business and officer business. Now we call it leadership business.
Oh, I love that.
I
love that.
It's leadership business.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I seek advice of my officer counterpart as well as they seek my advice.
Because it really is teamwork
It
when
really is.
in a command.
In a command
In
team.
order to really, when you get down to it, our mission is to go to war at times. And if we are going to do that, we can't have separateness.
You can't. You can't have
and
a
to
climate.
run a company,
Right.
you can't have separateness. It has to be on one accord. So that makes a lot.
And one thing that I did find out is that mentorship on both sides of the house needs work. When I say both sides of the house, officer mentorship, and officers will admit it too, and NCO mentorship. You have to have a program by regulation and NCO professional development, and then you have to have so many leader development sessions, meaning we all come together. We all come together. So that's how I fashioned my program. We had some sessions where it was just the officers had theirs, the NCOs had theirs, but there were several sessions where we all came together and learned together, because you have to foster an environment and assist your commander in fostering an environment where they learn together.
Yeah.
So that we're all talking the same language. We all know which direction we're going in, and we're going in that same direction. Now, we're still going to do things differently because institutional schools teach us differently. So institutional training is still a little different. However, when you get to that unit, it's on you to figure out a way to make that dynamic come together. And so for me, I started out early in my career as a construction person briefing officers. So officers have been a big part of my career. They have been a big part of my career. Me being in front of them, me being around them.
So get used to that.
Get used to that.
Do things like that and make presentations.
Have conversations. The biggest failure I think we have on both sides is that lack of relationship establishment and rapport establishment. Even in our counseling sessions for rating, performance evaluations, the first time an NCO comes to me for some advice about, or an officer, because when you become a sergeant major, a lot of officers are going to come to you.
Because of your knowledge,
because of your
experience.
Knowledge. First sergeant and sergeant major, a lot of the platoon leaders are going to come to you as a first sergeant, and the company commanders are going to come to you as a sergeant major. The first thing I ask them when it comes to performance evaluations is, did you do the counseling? Did you all physically sit down and talk? And how much have you talked? Forget about the counseling session. Do you talk every day?
Yeah.
Do you know what that person's doing? You might be after to accomplish the same mission, but are you doing your thing, accomplishing it?
Yeah, doing it separately.
Yeah. A lot of that happens, and it shouldn't happen. One of the things when I was a platoon sergeant, when we would get a construction project, it may be a construction project for second squad, but I would bring in all the squad leaders, and we would sit on the whiteboards and we would brainstorm.
Oh, wow.
What equipment we're going to need? What are we going to need? Because you need all the information.
Wow.
And
from all of the parties. So what you really did was form a collaboration.
Absolutely.
And not a competition.
Absolutely.
And not a separateness. We all have to make this happen together. And
Right.
so it's not that this portion gets completed first and then
Right.
we're waiting on you. We know where you are at all
Right.
times because we're meeting of the
Right.
minds.
Because the main effort might be for scrapers, but you're going to need those dozers to come in. You're going to need the vibratory rollers to come in, the compact equipment. So you're going to need everybody eventually. But the main effort might be for this particular squad. So you need that collaboration. And that's just a small example. And then as a platoon sergeant, I talked to my platoon leader and I said, let's give every squad leader, because we're rating them. We're rating their performance. So I would put each squad leader in a position to be successful at some main effort. I eliminated the competition.
That is so good, because so many times we find ourselves competing and then like, no, let's just make
each other
it.
in the back.
Yeah.
So that eliminates that, because that's what I dealt with. I dealt with people trying to stab me in the back for fear that I was going to do better than them. So the lesson learned for me as a leader out of that was, when I got in that leadership position, I eliminated the competition. Now some people are just naturally competitive.
Yeah, they're naturally
and they're going to create it whether you eliminate it or not. But for me, what I would do is we would plan all our projects and plan all our events. If it was arranged, whatever it was, I would say who's going to be in charge of it. Each squad leader got a chance to run a range. Each squad leader got a chance to do everything. That way, everybody has a fair chance to excel at that same event, and that way you get a fair chance to be evaluated at it.
I was about to say that allows excelling and standing out as a leader, being able to show your leadership skills and to perform, be rated on it, and to get the job done.
I offered it to all of them. I offered extra things like going to NCO boards, soldier boards. Those are the extra things. Now, if you turn those down, that's just shame on you. Because that really sets you apart from your peers. Then even as a sergeant major, I would tell my first sergeants, the team chiefs, even if they had a sergeant major at a quarter board, I would attend it. I don't do anything I don't ask you all to do.
So that was my next question. How many boards did you participate in? A lot of boards coming up in the ranks, because I know I did Soldier of the Month, Soldier of the Quarter, and things of that nature, which were quite fun, and they look great in the record. In order to be it when going before a promotion board, it always looks great to have those things in there. Did you participate in a lot of those?
I did, and I participated in them willingly. I went to both the E5 and the E6 board in the secondary zone. Because somebody asked me a long time ago what my long-term goal was for the military, and I asked them, well, what is the highest thing you can do? What is it? Because like I said, I joined spontaneously.
And this is how you gain the momentum and the thought of being a sergeant
propelling. Because there's no need of doing something if you don't have something to strive for.
Can you say that again?
There's no need to do something if you don't have anything to strive for. So I learned to set goals even back in the days of high school playing basketball, because our goal is to win the championship. I ran track, so our goal is to be state champs. You know what I'm saying?
Not just play ball.
Not play ball.
Out here to do
and even individually, I'm a shot put thrower. I'm going to be the best shot put thrower, but when I applied that to the Army, like I said, because it was a spontaneous move, I didn't know anything about it. One of my first counseling statements as a PFC, they asked me, well, what is your long-term goal? I said, what do you mean long-term? Like ever in the Army? Well, at the time, I wasn't making it a career. I signed up for 5 years off the bat. So I said, well, what can you do in 5 years? Name me something, because I didn't know anything about a career map then and all those things. And so they said, well, you could probably, in 5 years, you could probably make staff sergeant. You came in a PFC, you could probably make staff sergeant. So I said, okay, well, what does that mean? So they explained it to me. And so I said, well, okay, that's the goal. And then I need you to teach me how to do it.
Oh, wow.
So, so that's key. That's key. I learned that.
And you ask for what you want.
You ask for what you want. A lot of soldiers don't ask, and they don't. See, we empower soldiers, but they don't empower their leaders. I had to learn to empower.
That's good. That's really good.
I had to learn to empower my leaders, because remember I told you now nobody wanted to mentor me. So I had to make them mentor me, because it's their job. It's their job. It's your job to show me what I'm supposed to do. If I'm doing something wrong, it's not your job to go behind my back and talk about me.
That's what leadership is. It's guiding. You first have to teach and be an example. And then you guide them and mentor.
You have to be an example. You have to show. Example, show. Example. So example, be it inside. Be what you want them to be. Okay? Be what you want them to be. So you hone your craft first. That's another thing. So we went through that rapid promotion with the surge and the wars, and both officers and NCOs got cheated out of a lot of learning. We were a bit lazy in doing it ourselves. Now, one thing, like you say, I heard you say you fast tracked earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I fast tracked a little bit too. I didn't know I was fast tracking.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah.
So one of the things that I said, man, if I'm fast tracking, I better keep up with the learning, and that's what I advise soldiers to do. If you're fast tracking,
that's good.
Yes,
that is really good. Because as I was fast tracking, I don't think I've ever thought of that. Let me keep up with the learning.
Keep up with what you're supposed
I always just wanted to learn. But it never was, it wasn't intentional, but not with that thought in mind.
Yes.
And I think that by having that thought in mind, that I need to keep up with the learning and I need to be forehand. Not wait till something is coming out before I discover it.
Right.
But be looking, always looking with an outstretched neck.
Yes.
Of what's next and what's where's my career going? Where do I want to go? And you can also create your own path. You don't have to wait for somebody to say, okay, this is the next track. Know beforehand what it is that you want to do. And by doing that, you create your own pathway and you can map it out, like you said, a career map. And find out what it takes to get there, and then start your journey and find the mentors, find somebody to support you, and go with that thing. And that is so good.
Here's one of the things that I learned about soldiers. They don't see it as a real career.
This
is what you have decided to do. How can you be doing something for 10 years?
It's a job.
It's just
a job.
And if they really look at it, if they really took time and look at, even if it's a job, that when they say that to me, I tell them, well, then set some goals for that job. Because like I said, when I did not decide to make it a career until I was 9 years in. And that's when they came out with indefinite.
That was exactly the time I had.
I have one, out of 29 years, I have one re-enlistment contract in my record. One. You would think I would have many, but I only have one. Because I told you I signed up for 5 years, right? Back then you can do extensions.
Yes.
So I extended to get promoted to staff sergeant. And that was 3 years. And then
it went indefinite.
It went indefinite.
Wow.
And then the next one was a re-enlistment.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Because I still wasn't sure. I went to my spouse at the time and said, I don't think I want to stay in, because now I'm deep into this engineer thing. And it was miserable. And then by now I have I have both my children. No, I was pregnant with my son. And I have my daughter. Now I have children. Something I never planned on doing, by the way. And that thing was getting to me. I mean, to the point where I would just be so jealous that a parent could walk their child to the bus stop.
Oh, wow. So how did you deal with that? Then end up still staying in for 29 years?
My children were latchkey kids. You ever heard of latchkey kids?
Yeah.
And it was just killing me. The way I did it was, being dual military, we had a good plan. We did that thing. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people would ask us, how are y'all doing this? Y'all dual military, y'all coaches, you're refereeing, your kids play on 2 different basketball leagues, and your, what they call it, T-ball, and our kids were very active. It got more difficult once we had the second child, but when it was just my daughter, because they're like 6 years and some months apart, we did. But we had a good system, and we had good support from other military couples.
Wow.
Hawaii, we had Sisters in Arms. That was a mentorship program that I was on the executive committee for. And then people used to ask me to come guest speaking about being dual military. And that was one of the things I tell them. You have to be willing to have people in your life that have a like family nomenclature, that have like interests. Maybe you're dual military, they're dual military, you have 2 kids, they have 2 children, and then you can help each other out. You have to, sometimes that's just the way it is. A lot of people want to depend on family members. family members will let you down sometimes.
Yeah.
Most times. When I got appointed to Command Sergeant Major on the day of my appointment ceremony, on my family roll, it was the only blood relative on my family roll was my son.
Wow.
My children, I say, you have surrogate parents. And you better keep in touch with them.
Yeah.
The people that sat on that roll were people. It was so
That
ironic
helped you
that they
throughout
were
the
in
years.
Hawaii.
Wow.
That had helped me throughout the years, but they were in Hawaii.
Wow.
And that's who sat on my roll.
Wow.
It was people that had helped from when they were very small to the present.
Wow.
And that's the way you make it.
Wow.
That's how I did it.
Wow.
I had support, and then my ex-husband and I, we had a great system of how we did things, and we had support
Wow.
from battle buddies
Wow.
and other families.
Woo! Woo! Such rich information. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
Take strength.